Hello everybody and welcome in! So glad to see you guys. You know, it's been a few weeks before the 2022 midterms and Republicans didn't do the best. I did mention in one of my videos that a terrible night and the quote-unquote doomsday scenario for the Republicans would be around 50 seats in the Senate, and well, it happened. The Republicans did win the House, but by a dangerously slim majority. I'll do a deeper analysis later on why the Republicans essentially dropped the ball on this one, but today what I'm looking at is at the states where the GOP did in fact experience a massive red wave. The state I'll analyze today is Florida. The next one I'll do is New York, which will come sooner than later, hopefully. Florida has been a pretty swingy state historically. For comparison's sake, for the last 14 years, no party has won the state by more than 4 points on either the presidential or the Senate scale. Because of that, a Ron De Santis win that came around 20 points over Charlie Crist, and a Marco Rubio win that came around 16 points over Val Demings is truly a politically historic margin for Florida. Republicans were even able to flip the key counties of Miami-Dade and Palm Beach, both of which were Democratic strongholds. Of course, I'd like to point out that even if Ron De Santis or Marco Rubio were to win the polling averages by 9 to 12 points for De Santis and 8 points for Marco Rubio, it would have been incredibly historic nonetheless. However, a win by this big of a margin was unexpected to say the least. So why is that? Part of the reason for this performance is the swing of Latino voters in South Florida. In 2020 especially, the Latino vote swung by around 8 points towards the GOP. At least in South Florida, that trend has largely continued, with a significant portion of the Latino vote breaking out for Republicans in Florida. That's not to mention the years of outreach and effort that the GOP has consistently put to appeal to Latino voters in South Florida. Especially since 2020, the GOP has succeeded in registering and convincing Hispanic voters in blue strongholds such as Miami, parts of Jacksonville, and Orlando. Of course, this trend doesn't necessarily apply nationwide as we saw in places like Arizona and some places in Texas, but it's gotten to a point where the Democrats can no longer reliably count on the Latino vote. Another reason, of course, is the surge of people moving into Florida, more notably people who are older, wealthier, and typically vote more conservative. Florida is historically known to have little to no income tax, and since 2020, almost no COVID restrictions, which was a major pull factor for many people moving in. The Florida GOP in particular has done an incredible job at aggressively registering and mobilizing voters that came from northeastern states such as Massachusetts, New York, or New Jersey, in order to fit them into Governor De Santis' quote-unquote vision, per se. Another possible explanation is that there was simply high Republican turnout and low Democrat turnout. Republicans were energized because of Ron De Santis, who was basically a superstar candidate at the top of the ticket. In contrast, Democrats didn't show up, possibly because they believed Florida would not be a competitive swing state. Of course, GOP energy also trickled down to House races, where the GOP won 11 of the 14 House races. This is obviously in part due to Governor DeSantis' redistricting efforts, which were heavily favored of Republicans, but also in part because of the political environment in Florida. Continuing to lose these rather significant factors in Florida could mean the GOP has eliminated chances for Florida Democrats to continue to make inroads in the state. Obviously, we'll have to see how Florida pans out in the future, but it's likely that Florida would stay as a safe red state for a long time.